Very good afternoon, everybody. We have a very interesting next panel on connecting the dots for reimagining career education between work and being work ready and towards academic programs that actually teach in-demand career skills. We welcome our brilliant panelists. We have with us Mr. Mayank Kumar, co-founder and MD UPGRAD. Very good afternoon to you. We also have with us Mr. Krishna, CEO, Simplilearn, and Mr. Irwin, Anand, Managing Director, India, Udemy. A very good afternoon to all of you. This session will be moderated by Mr. Gautam Srivastava, Director, EY, Parthenon. It's all over to you now, Mr. Srivastava.
Thank you, Muskan, and a big welcome to the co-panelists that we have. We have a power-packed panel here. So let me dive right into the planned session. Let me start by just laying down the context of this discussion for maybe 3-4 minutes. And then there are a bunch of specific questions in this interesting space, which I would like the members to sort of discuss and answer. So let me just quickly talk about the points that I have to cover. So starting with a thought experiment, really. So imagine if you were a professional, working professional in 17th century, and you are suddenly transformed and you time travel to 19th century, 1900s. There will be some change. You will see different sort of economy. There will be more industrial workers, some construction infrastructure activity happening, but you will be slightly surprised. Take a 1900s, a worker in 1900s, transpose that worker to 1960s, some more surprises, electronics, industrial, auto, some of the services industries are coming in, so a higher degree of surprise. Take that 1960s person and place that person into the current times, 2010s or 2020s. There is digital, internet, mobile phone, it's a different world, a very high degree of surprise. So the core question for us as that generation is, what will happen towards 2020s, 2030s, and 2040s? And would the working population of today be well skilled enough to sort of address the challenges that the next 20 years pose? And that's where actually the concept of continuous learning and continuous upskilling comes into place. If you were to just look at the customer segments here, and again, when you are talking about continuous skilling, we are talking about students, people with maybe 0 to 2 years of work ex, which is early professionals. Then there is a mid-career professionals of, let's say, 3 to 7 years. And then, of course, the mid to senior management. The needs across will vary. In the initial stages, you are looking at employment. In the middle stages, you are looking at pushing up the trajectory. And in, of course, the mid and senior stages, you are looking at leadership and ability to manage that particular workforce, which is much more skilled in a new age sort of area or a segment. And in order to cater to that, we have obviously a supply side, which has sort of come up. So players like UPGRAD, Simplilearn, Udemy are offering these and addressing this particular problem in their own specific ways, ranging from really self-paced learning, which is dependent on you, to a short, intensive, employment-centric programs, to upskilling programs and pathways, to industry certifications, which enable them to have industry-relevant context. And that's effectively the lay of the land as it stands currently. There is a humongous need of actually upskilling as we go along, and there are different needs at differing points, and there are various formats. Now, given that backdrop, let me just dive into the agenda for the today's discussion. Maybe let me start with you, Mayank. Let's start talking about how you see the market, the current learner segments. What do you think are the core motivations to upskill? And maybe you can start with that, and as we will go along with the questions.
Thanks, Gautam. First of all, thank you for having me here for the panel, and look forward to having a meaningful conversation. So, Gautam, on your specific question about the kind of learners and the profile that are coming in, I mean, while macro-wise, we all know working professional, student population, they are all quite active in learning, upskilling, and picking up the new skill. There are 2-3 new trends that we are seeing. The first one is, yes, working professional is a domain, as you rightly said, that look, job used to get passed generations after generations. So your surname used to define what job you are in. And over a period of time, you started moving from one generation to another generation into new jobs. And over a period of time, you have come to a place where you're shifting jobs 6-7 times in your career. So there's a fair shift that is happening, and therefore the working professional today is quite adept into sort of taking up skilling and upskilling on a continuous basis. There are two broad trends that we are seeing, Gautam, emerging, which is one is on the upskilling used to be very much a technology and IT ecosystem play, and that was a big sort of play that was happening because technology changes very sort of in a very fast-paced manner. We are seeing that shift moving from just traditional technology field to more traditional areas of sales, marketing, the non-technology ecosystem also. And again, between UpGrad, Simplilearn, Udemy, all of us are moving more and more in that direction because we are seeing more and action coming in from people who are in traditional industries, trying to pick up digital skills, trying to pick up technology skills so that they become more and more relevant. I think that's a big macro trend that at least we are observing in the ecosystem. The second one, which we used to witness earlier, but it has now become far more prevalent, is this ecosystem of young, college students. So earlier we used to say, okay, college students are only looking for one or two new age skills like Python, Java, Node.js, so on and so forth. They get more relevant, but we are now seeing a significant shift happening amongst them as well, because companies are now coming to them asking for the right kind of skills. So while working professional technology, which is our mainstay today, continues to be the mainstay, we are seeing younger audience and non-traditional and non-technology folks coming in the ecosystem. So it's a shift happening. And I was just in a conversation earlier with someone, a Unilever leader, talking about how ecosystem evolves. And he said that, look, Edtech was a 0 to 5% penetration play. It has now gone to a 5 to 20% penetration play. And his take was that, look, at this point in time, you will start seeing new customers, new consumers, new ecosystem coming in. And I think we are just seeing early signs of that. And that's one at least broader macro shift that we are seeing in the ecosystem right now.
That's interesting. So Irwin, you come from your offering is slightly different from what UpGrad and Simplilearn offer. How do you see the market evolving? Are you also seeing that trend across tech and non-tech, and the motivation levels increasing to complete the course by themselves?
Yeah, thanks, Gautam. Thanks for having me here. Mayank touched on all the relevant points again, which we're seeing being unraveling as we kind of play in this market and as the market evolves. I want to go back maybe a year back when we actually did a skilling survey with white-collared workers, essentially 1,000+ respondents, and we were discussing with them about the skills gap, and this is pre-pandemic, and the numbers were kind of fairly hard-hitting. 90%+ respondents said that actually there's a skill gap. Beyond that, about 75% of them mentioned that they personally are being impacted by it. 82% said that whatever they learn at school or college is not relevant when they actually join the workforce. More than a third, I think 76 or 77% said that their job as it exists will not remain in the next 5 years because it will be replaced by robots and bots. And more than 90% said that they definitely need to invest in themselves to upgrade their skills, to continue to participate in the job market, be relevant in the job market, and then compete in this job market as well. Yeah. So I think that is the environment and context which was pre-pandemic. Now think about pandemic hitting, and you see all the things which you are talking about. You're talking about the age of fourth industrial revolution, fast pace of change, globalization impacting all walks of life, digital and tech disrupting all aspects of work in a corporate environment. Yeah. And you see acceleration on all those fronts. And suddenly you have people sitting in their homes and realizing that that now they have time to figure out their own destiny. They need to invest in themselves to create a future for themselves. As Mayank alluded to, gone are the times where there's one career and you actually rely on the system, you join that career and you retire with that career, right? And the system of Papa telling me what to do, or I pass from a premium IIT and my life is set, or I join a government job and my life is set. Gone are the days of that sense of security, right? people now realize themselves that they are responsible for their own destiny, and they need to continuously learn to continue to stay relevant. Yeah. The same thing is happening on the corporate side of things as well, right? As Mayank alluded to as well, both on the individual side as well as corporate side, tech and IT-enabled services, those segments responded to this need and requirement, yeah, much before than others, right? But now we are seeing a broad-based influx of users, new learners for the first time, who are interested in skills beyond core tech, getting into digital disruption. In fact, even a shift into realizing that soft skills are going to be important in future as well. Maybe an area which on the marketplace, which was subdued earlier, which is skills like leadership, communication, resilience, yeah, work-life balance, yeah, remote working, all those things which were kind of subdued earlier. People used to invest in their own hard skills. I think things are changing. People are realizing that continue to remain competitive, they need to invest in their softer aspect as well. And the same thing on the corporate side as well. Our conversation with leaders and enterprises has gone to, if we want to stay relevant and if we want to innovate, people is our investment. It is more important to continue to reskill, and maybe cheaper and more effective to reskill people internally rather than hiring new people. And platforms like Udemy, which is essentially a marketplace, which is a dynamic marketplace, new content keeps on getting created as skills change. Skills really change fast. Shelf life, half-life of a tech skill is as low as 12 months. It is important for people and organizations and enterprises to develop that mindset of the culture of learning, the habit of learning, always learning. Yeah. Gone are the days when you pass out from a college and then you think that that's all that you need to do from an education perspective, right? So the concept of education itself has changed. And the big change which we're seeing is that people and enterprises themselves are realizing that the onus is on themselves to invest in yourself, in your employees, to continue to stay relevant. And that's leading to the growth which we're seeing on Udemy, and I'm assuming the same in the entire ecosystem as well.
Thanks, Irwin. KK, your views on this? And then maybe let me also shift gears and also talk about what we call as the user success, right? I mean, clearly the benefits and the business case is there, but the proof of the pudding is in eating it, right? So if you can also talk about some of the successes that users are sort of experiencing, that would be sort of a good input.
No, definitely. And thanks, Gautam, for having me here. And it's always great to hear Irwin and Mayank. And I think I couldn't agree more to them. That completely agree to both their views. I was about to address the same point that you're taking the discussions to. So when you look at this whole lifelong learning and skilling, there are different user personas, and their needs are different, right? Like Mayank spoke about this, students who were not earlier targeted by platforms like us has become a big segment, because obviously we are adding a lot of value to those user persona. Their needs are very different, right? They just want to get into the industry, and they want to get into the industry of their choice, right? Because as a student, they have all the possibilities, and we not only help them get into the industry, we also help them identify what is the right industry where they can get maximum growth. So their needs are different. Then comes the early career professionals. See, early career professionals also have this advantage that while they are working in one such role or one such industry, pretty much everything is open for them, because in the first couple of years you get to learn how industry works, how do you work in team, how are project delivered, how is the organization hierarchy. Some of those softer skills, while you learn some hard skills also on the job, but you have pretty much all the possibilities in front of you. Like I'll tell you examples from my own organization. We see a lot of people joining in our sales team. Of course, all these companies have pretty large sales team. After a year, they realize that, no, I'm not enjoying sales. Can I get an entry into marketing? Can I get into product? Can I get into technology? Or can I get into the learning operations? We see all those kind of changes happening. And I'm sure this is the thought process among all early career professionals. A lot of people who come and take Simplilearn courses, they're software programmers, but they want to become data scientists, or they want to become cloud architect, or they want to get into one of those adjacent areas. Pretty easy to do that change, because huge demand supply gap. Our courses are also very, very well designed, targeted, and we see a lot of success there. Now, next comes this mid-career professionals. See, mid-career professionals, they do not have the flexibility of a early career professional, nor they have the flexibility of a fresh graduate who can get into any industry. they can't let go of the experience that they've already built over this year. So their needs are different. There they take this kind of programs that makes them do some parallel transition or some kind of adjacent transition, right? And there also we have over a period of time we have figured it out what really works for them. So we suggest them programs that can really make that happen. Like for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody who has spent their entire career in sales, 6, 7, 8 years, been a fairly successful sales professional, and he hears in the market that okay, data scientist is the profession for future. I will not suggest him, or nor Simplilearn ever suggest him to take a data scientist course because everybody does it. You can't do it, period. There is time to get into certain role. But what you can definitely become, you can become a business analyst. So a lot of companies are looking for analysts who understands their sales or marketing, or for that matter, any kind of business function. So and then teach you this analysis skill. So marry this analysis skill to the business domain understanding that you already have to make transition into those roles. So those are the kind of, and that's a perfectly, that can be as closer to a data scientist role as this person can imagine. And it's a very high growing area being a business analyst. So we suggest those kind of programs for them, wherein your current experience is also valued and it marries with your desire of your career growth in future. So that way the needs are very different. See, the only thing that worries me in this whole lifelong learning case is people who have already crossed a certain age, like they spent 15, 20 years of experience. I think that is a sector wherein I have not, at least we have not thought it come out of a program that can do a meaningful impact on their lives. Because there are a lot of challenges. One, your learnability reduces by the time you get to that kind of experience. Like people don't talk about it openly, but there's a reality that there's a bias against hiring after a certain number of years of experience for the same role. So coupled with those challenges, and we have not seen what can we do so that we can make a good impact. I'll give an example, right? On an average, every week I get at least 10 applications on my LinkedIn saying that I am XYZ, I have 20 plus years of sales and marketing experience. When I hear those kind of resume, that really worries me, because companies like us and majority of the companies, they try to identify either you are a sales professional, you are a marketing professional, you are like they try to bucket you in a certain category. Everybody is looking for those specialist guys. If you have done sales, marketing, business operations, you become a CEO. So if you're not applying for a CEO or a business function head kind of role, then that kind of profiles generally get rejected. So that's one area that we as Simplilearn are trying to figure it out, that what can we do to these people, because it's a real societal problem, right? At the age of 40, if you're not getting meaningful employment, you have a long life to go. So what will happen to your future earning potential, your family, and so on. But in the other three buckets, the fresh graduates, early career, mid-career, we have seen huge success. And I'm sure the internet is full with the stories about how people have progressed. Having said that, we also see that all the digital platforms are also easy target for people who are non-believers, right? There are so many educational institutions in the country. Where do you go and see people talking about that I went to so-and-so college, I didn't get any career outcome? But if one person is not satisfied, they'll go and talk about that on all kinds of platforms, that how I took this program and they didn't help me. So I was just feeling my free-flowing thought getting into my mind, and I'll stop here.
Great. That's very useful, KK. So I think if I dig a bit deeper, and again, as I think we are all aligned that, look, this is something that is critical, but the questions do come around, say, synchronous versus asynchronous nature of learning, online versus offline, or in-person, or even for that matter, hybrid mode of learning. So maybe I'll start with Irwin here. Between online, offline, synchronous and asynchronous, how do you think the learning effectiveness varies, and what does it mean for the online edtech upskilling industry in that sense?
As a company, we believe that all kinds of education are relevant and important. People definitely need to go to schools and colleges because they not only provide pedagogy, but also real life social experience, which is valuable for the lifetime. In addition, people need hands-on practical skills whenever they are stuck, whenever in a moment of need, they need skilling solutions to be able to unblock them so that they can do whatever challenge comes their way effectively. We actually did another survey very recently. This is actually a couple of months back, so during pandemic, in terms of within enterprises, how has education or instruction changed as corporates think about deploying learning solutions. And as is obvious, so the share of in-person, in-classroom, instructor-led training used to be the highest, and it practically reduced to zero during the time of the pandemic. The drop in the share was taken up by synchronous instructor-led virtual training and also asynchronous learning from companies like Udemy. Yeah. And the big question which we asked was, how do you see things in future? This is a question asked for business leaders and L&D leaders. The answer was that in-person classroom led would remain low in future. Yeah. Virtual instructor-led training would, and asynchronous, both of them would continue to remain relevant in future for different needs. Asynchronous, primarily because we are a culture of in-demand learning, right? So everybody learns at their own pace, at their own time, at their own moment of need. We now expect learning to come to people rather than people to go to learning, right? And hence, platforms like Udemy, which provide on-demand learning to people whenever they require, are essentially chosen platforms for enterprise-wide deployments for companies which want to build a culture of learning, who want to enable their employees to access learning whenever they have a problem to solve or whenever they want to progress towards a specific career path. At the same time, there are point needs for synchronous learning solutions as well. And maybe Krishna and Mayank can allude to some of those. Whenever there are deep interventions required, which require people to get into cohort-based learning, then even synchronous learning makes sense. And maybe Krishna, you can talk about some of those scenarios which you're seeing. But from our vantage point, all kinds of learning will remain relevant. There's space for all of us to remain effective for different audience segments and different learning needs.
Absolutely. Krishna, your views? I think you are from the opposite end where, and again, probably the areas that you look at are also sort of complicated, which may not be, very easily absorbed. So thoughts on synchronous versus asynchronous there?
Yeah, sure, Gautam. So I agree completely with Irwin. See, there are all kinds of users and different learning like method to work or different learning philosophy aligns with their need, right? Like those who are, there are a lot of people who can learn on their own and they prefer learning on their own. And frankly, that's not a user segment that we at Simplilearn target. In fact, we have recently launched an offering for those that audience was not a target audience for us under a platform called Simplilearn Skill Up, wherein thousands of learners come and take our completely free video learning programs for free. In fact, last month we had 70,000 learners who signed up on our program, and they are currently going through that curriculum. So our strong philosophy, or a strong belief at Simplilearn is that content is at the end of it commodity. The best learning platform out there on the internet is YouTube. You can learn, get the best content out there and you can learn. So we are not into that business. There are much better platforms like Udemy where learners can go and learn those kind of programs. What we stand for is an interactive, engaging, hands-on learning. So everything that we do on Simplilearn platform aligns with a in-demand role in the industry. We don't teach anything that doesn't result into a role. So you'll see our programs are like data scientist, digital marketing expert, cloud architect, cybersecurity expert, and so on. So aim is that as learners come into those programs because they want to make transition into those roles. And these are all cohort-based programs, which is a combination of video learning, live learning, and hands-on project. So if I think of Simplilearn, at any point of time, we have more than 50,000 learners learning live, going through multiple cohorts that are running in parallel. And that's why we also call ourselves as the world's largest online bootcamp. There's no other platform globally who has that kind of interactive users learning in a cohort-based model as the number on the Simplilearn platform. So very, very strong believers of that. And we think that majority of the learners require intervention. They learn in group, they learn through instructor, and they learn by doing. Having said that, there are learners who can learn on their own, and they should continue learning on their own. So there are like cases where learner comes to us saying that, okay, why should I take a Simplilearn program, which is 10x more costlier than a Udemy program? Our standard response is that, please go to Udemy and learn from it. If that works for you, great. So not learning is a bigger challenge. Learning from either of the platform is good for you. Don't stop your learning. Select a platform that suits your learning style.
Interesting. But you probably have a different cohort as well, which is probably the younger cohort, right? I mean, and I noticed that UPGRAD has also launched some of these degree programs, though they are smaller from a materiality perspective, but that will be a different challenge, right? Not self-motivated, the not so disciplined sort of cohorts. So how do you see this concept?
First of all, I agree to what Irwin said and Krishna said, that look, there are different needs and everyone will go for a different problem solution. And I give a very simple example that if you have an examination tomorrow, you will first quickly go to the library and pick up the latest book and learn from there. So there are places where just-in-time learning become very handy. If you are preparing for a career in electrical engineering, you will go through a 4-year BTech program, which will prepare you for taking up a career in electrical engineering. So at different points in time, there are different use cases and needs that are required from individuals that can be solved by different formats of learning. So there's no one fit solves all solution kind of an approach. The way we see this is the advantage of recorded learning, because Gautam, that was your question about what are the formats of learning, is that you can disseminate a form of education to a very large audience. And think of it as Philip Kotler writing a book on marketing. Each one of us at different points in time would have read a book of Philip Kotler, but the lecture would have been delivered by a professor at one of those management institution that will be delivering a live lecture at that point in time. So if I look at the pyramid of learning, there is recorded lecture that can be mass disseminated, get the best faculty, best instructor, and create a great sort of recorded lecture field. You have the next layer where from that mass dissemination, you go on to more live lecture delivery, where you can get 100, 200, 50, 70, a largish audience to conduct a 1 to 100 kind of a modality learning, where you can cover more conceptual topic, which requires hands-on learning, as Krishna said, boot camp-ish model, where you are doing this and they are running boot camp. You can take the same 1:100 and break it down into 1:5 or 1:7, which what Irwin mentioned is the cohort-based approach, or very small personalized approach where you can actually hands-on hold the person and take them through. And then you have the one-on-one coaching, which is what Krishna was alluding to, that look, if I have to get a 20-year plus guy, the best way of teaching them and coaching them is with one-on-one coaching. It may not be a recorded lecture. It may not be like 100. So different fragmentation, you require different intervention. And I think a truly world-class education system can be emerged which uses different layers for different level of intervention for different variety of things. And that's where sort of I think the world will evolve towards that. There's not going to be one size fit all. You may learn something from Udemy. You can come back with a largish sort of format, maybe let's say from UpGrad, Simplilearn, or a small cohort coaching from UpGrad, Simplilearn. And then you can go to coaching platform to get one-on-one coaching or one-on-one sort of intervention. So I guess the models are evolving. There's no, with different use cases, you're solving for different problems. But I guess tools are available out there. And I agree to Krishna that it's a point of you learn or you don't learn. And many a times when people come and ask me this question, my work is so busy and I'm not finding time to learn, my response to them is that it's not priority enough for you. If it becomes priority, you will find time to learn. So I think that's the crux, that you need to find time to learn. There are different tools available. You can pick up whatever suits your learning requirements.
Great. Thanks, Mayank. I think that inputs from you, Irwin and KK, untangled it quite a bit from an understanding perspective. You alluded to the fact, or you alluded to the evolution of the market, right? And that brings me to the next area, which is effectively over a period of next 5 years, what are those key opportunities that you see for Indian EdTech, or for that matter, EdTech as a platform, right? There are various avenues of growth, which can be geographic, which can be new product segments, new formats of learning. I mean, untangle for me how the next 5 years will probably look like. Maybe we can start with Mayank and then come to KK and Irwin.
So I guess the building blocks are set. And you're talking about EdTech in general, right? Or just
yes.
I see 2-3 things. If I have to just take a slightly more industry perspective, I personally feel in the next year, 6 months or so, about the sector will see a huge influx of capital flowing in. My personal take is anywhere between $500 million to $1 billion will flow into the education sector in the country. In the next 18 months to 24 months, $2 to $3 billion will flow into the education sector. So on a lighter note, whatever government's ambitions are, I think venture capitalists will fund that education needs of the country in the mid to long run. So I think first, there is going to be a lot of capital chasing good businesses. The second thing that will happen is that the lines will start getting blurred. People will start picking up multiple things, and M&A, acquisition, roll up where people will start moving and lines will start getting blurred in the context. There's not going to be higher ed. I mean, you're seeing it, what's happening with various players acquiring. People will start moving to different sectors and different segments. And finally, if you have to ask me, Gautam, the live infrastructure and the live learning infrastructure will see a lot of innovation happening in that zone. And between the three will shape what the EdTech will come out. The focus on outcomes, etc., is a macro trend that will continue, but capital chasing the ecosystem, lines getting blurred, and competition and M&A sort of coming in, playing a much larger role, leading to innovation coming in live formats, cohort-based, I mean, approach where people can connect one-on-one with humans at the end.
Interesting. KK, I think you, Simplilearn obviously has another angle, which is the geographic angle, I would assume, right? I mean, what is your view on that? I mean, catering to maybe the developed economies, or for that matter, the developing Southeast Asian economies or some of the other African, Middle East regions. Is that a big opportunity? Can India in EdTech be what it was for IT in that sense, right?
Yeah, so Gautam, I agree with everything that Mayank said, that we'll see a lot of consolidation happening, a lot of, that is already happening. As you see, every day there is a news about some consolidation happening, a lot of fundraisers are also, a lot of fund is also changing this industry, and we'll continue to see that only accelerating in the next 1 to 2 years. And I strongly believe that EdTech is a global opportunity. And for us, like 60-65% of our revenues outside India, we only see it growing, and we will see also a lot of Indian players trying to get more and more bigger pie of the global business, because frankly, we have all the ingredients to do a great job from India and teach the entire world, right? Indians are known for their technology talent. The entire world needs to be retrained on some of the emerging technologies. And this is not a one-time phenomenon, right? It is an ongoing phenomenon. Every 2 year, technology completely changes. So as we get into the future, the need for constant reskilling is going to be like, is only going to accelerate. You give an example that 1960s worker comes to 2020, how will he feel? I think that's a very, very long example. In my view, somebody who was in 2015 and switches off and comes to 2021, he'll feel that he's living in an alien world, right? So the pace of change is only accelerating, and that will require constant skilling. In many discussion, we keep talking about that people take all kinds of insurance. The biggest insurance is constant skilling of your own self, and this has not become a reality, but I think it will soon become a reality. So that's on our space, like space that we operate, lifelong learning. But if you look at broader K-12 space also, there are a lot of skills which are common. While there are government-related regulation for what needs to be taught to kids, but the basics of science, maths, arts, hobbies all remains the same. Like both my kids take online classes, and the instructors are not in Bangalore, and I don't see any reason why they will change. And I'm not talking about their academic classes. My son, he plays, he likes keyboard, and he's like doing multiple levels of keyboard during this time. And that instructor is based in Chennai, and he's like saying that out of all the instructors that I ever had in person, he's the best instructor that I'm enjoying taking the classes. So I'm sure this trend is going, just flip that Chennai and Bangalore to maybe India and US. So we see that macro factors are supporting such a trend.
Interesting. Irwin, your view, what will be those mega trends that you think will change the 2025 scenario?
Oh, okay, a lot has been shared already. I think growth will come from all aspects of the ecosystem: individual learners, corporate learners, synchronous, asynchronous, different kind of formats. Global, as Krishna alluded to, Udemy is a US anchored company, but 2/3 of our learners actually come from learners outside of the US. And a significant part of our growth is coming from APAC and Latin America and these geos. I think future gazing 5 years down the line, I think we have very preconceived notions right now in terms of education today. Who teaches? Who learns? Where do we teach? How do we teach? How do people learn? What formats work? I think we are at the building blocks right now. A lot of innovation is going to be happening. A lot of this is going to be disrupted in the coming years, right? And a lot of this is not only infrastructure or experience change, but is also a mindset change. That mindset change towards lifelong learning is starting to happen, but it's not really become mainstream. So I would say you'll see a significant difference in terms of how people perceive learning and education in the years to come. And I see my son, who's right now in grade 7th, I'm not even sure whether he'll actually do higher education like we did, right? Whether he'll actually go to an XLRI or an IIT, or he might actually learn through different formats and ways coming from the Edtech investments which are happening today and in future.
Great. So I think all of us need to brace up for the brave new world of 5-10 years down the line. Let's see how that sort of turns out. I think I think we are short of time already. Any further thoughts from anyone, or I'll hand it back to the team from Franchise India?